July 21st.
Anything different?
Well, either way, we're gonna be, either way, we'll take it out. Okay, so,
Good morning, Karen. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I've been fairing, like doing the fair all week, so I'm a little, gotta get back in the routine, yeah. Queen, and so it's been
A different experience this year?
yes, trying to get everything, you know what I mean? Making sure, okay, this, and you know, she's not able to help. Well, she showed her sheep and goats, but not being able to help like she normally does because, you know,
Oh, Calvert, I was.
queen duties, you know, so I'm like, and then getting ready for state contest, that's intriguing. Yeah.
I think the rest of them are all muted.
These are shorter.
Yep.
Maybe we can get a Chris a hacksaw, shorter.
Exactly. I do
Yeah,
like
I
that.
think.
And you know what, I would think almost that they would here, somewhere in here.
See, you got this little piece there, but it doesn't.
Yeah. So we tried.
Well, it is, I'll have you unmute. Welcome, everybody. It is 9 o'clock. We will get started. We thank you for those of you that are online. We have several of you online. Welcome. We have several in the room. This is our summer quarterly meeting for economic development, our summer connect meeting. Today we're focusing on quality of life. I will turn it over to the supervisors for them to call the meeting to order.
Appreciate it. Are we on? Okay. Jake, can you hear us okay?
I can. Can you hear me okay, Mark?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Try to
Appreciate doing this.
coordinate all this technology. Thank you, everybody, for coming this morning. Appreciate Carla for organizing these quarterly meetings. I think they've been very productive. We'll go ahead and call this special meeting of the Marion County Board of Supervisors to order. Jake, roll call.
Keisha Johnner,
Here.
Mark Ramey,
Here.
Steve McCombs.
Steve is absent today.
Okay.
Very good. Is there a motion to approve this morning's agenda?
Yes, I make motion to approve today's agenda.
Oh, second. I'm not used to doing that.
All right. So Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
Very good. All right, on to business. Carla.
Yes, and I realized I probably should speak to one of the microphones. Welcome, everyone. We are, like I say, following kind of a protocol today, talking about quality of life projects that we felt that was important to update folks on all the things going on. So our first speaker will be Steve Edwards from the Marion County Conservation Board. Steve.
Thanks, Carla. Well, thanks for the opportunity to come and talk a little bit about what we've been doing at the county parks over the last couple of years for quality of life improvements. So we can go to the first slide. This is a shot of the East Campground at Roberts Creek. And one of the things we knew we had to do was update our campground facilities because they hadn't been for probably 20 years or so. And the camping public now is using RVs that are absolutely huge, where a 50 amp electric service is the minimum that you need. This campground here, as you can see, has 50 campsites. They're close together. They're relatively small. And it only had 30 amp electric service, a few water hydrants, and that was about it. So we decided to formulate a plan that we're going to completely renovate that campground. You want to go to the next slide? this is what an average weekend looked like up there, tight, not a lot of room to move around in, and that's not even a picture from the Nationals, so it gets to be very hectic up there. So if you go to the next slide, what we ended up doing was deciding to go with an upper loop and a lower loop. So what we did on the upper loop was we took every other site out and spread the sites out 60 feet apart and developed a lower loop. That used to be the old beach complex on the east side of Roberts Creek. It hadn't been used for probably 30 years. So we put 2 loops in there, and we went to full hookups. That's for electric, that's 50 amp, 30 and 20 amp service, sewer and water at each site. So all 56 of those sites are now full service sites. And those are the sites that are in demand now from the camping public. So if you go to the next slide, this gives you an idea of the size of the pads. Now they're roughly 70 feet long by 16 feet wide. Full service, I mentioned before, and you can see where we removed one of the campsites, so they have a nice separation between them. The 2 white campers on the other side also have about 60 feet between them. So what you do is, you increase your occupancy as well. The nicer the sites, the occupancy increases and the length of stay increases. So if you go to the next slide, this is the lower loop. So that was pretty much a clean slate, and we could do whatever we wanted to down there as far as separation. So next slide. This is the west side of Roberts Creek, the first half of the park. We have exactly the same problem. The sites were too close together. This is what an average weekend looked like. But the problem here for renovation was each one of those sites is concrete. And in order to do full service and get sewer through those, we had to remove every other site by renting a concrete saw, sawing them up, and then hauling those out, which took a little more time than normal. So if you go to the next slide, this is what it looks like after renovation. That site also was strictly 30 amp electric service, very little water, no sewer. Those are all now full service sites as well, and they're about 50 feet apart. We left as many of the concrete sites in as we could. If you go to the next slide, that's another shot of the separation that we have. So in between those 2 sites that you see would have been another one that was removed. So those are all very nice sites now. You can see on the left-hand side where we had to saw through the concrete to run the sewer through that. So the next slide, this gives you kind of a summary of the renovation, where on the east side, we increased the sites actually from 50 to 56 because we had the room. On the west side, and this is the first half of the park, we went from 39 sites to 25. So total campsites at Roberts Creek are 122. So we've got 120 full service sites. Again, that's 50, 30, 20 amp electric, sewer and water at each site, and then we have 2 water and electric sites. So for fiscal year 2019 through 20, we generated a little over $203,000. After the renovation was done, FY 2021, we generated $264,000. So again, as I mentioned earlier, better sites equal longer stays and more occupancy, even though we've reduced the number of sites. So quality over quantity is kind of the name of the game now. So we'll go to the next one. The other thing we like to do is move our granular sites to hard surfacing. And the main reason we're trying to do that is to accommodate people that might have some mobility issues for like ADA accessibility. So we try to do a couple of those every year because they run about $5,000 every time you do one. So, but the camping public really enjoys that, and they understand that those are higher dollar sites as well. So that's worked well for us. Next slide, please. This is an area, this is the east side of Roberts Creek Lake. This was the original boat ramp at Roberts Creek, as you can see on the right-hand side. Over the years, that particular area has shallowed up some, And across the way, we've got a new high water ramp that we did several years ago. So most motorboats that fish on Roberts Creek or use the lake, they use that ramp because this one that we're looking at is too shallow for them. So we've been working with a businessman from Pella that deals in stand-up paddleboarding. Aquatic sports now is one of the fastest growing sports actually in Iowa and the US. So what we've decided to do is try to turn this side of the lake into a launching area for stand-up paddleboarders, kayaks, and canoes. So we started it last year. We'll continue to put granular material there for the launching site. Actually, Mr. Russ, the businessman, donated that dock for us, and we're going to continue to try to improve that area for strictly stand-up paddleboarding, canoes, and kayaks. So if you go to the next slide, what we've found just by watching people is if you're new to kayaking, there's kind of an art to getting in and out of kayak if you've never done it before. So what we're looking at doing is getting a kayak launch like this that actually will bolt to the dock to make it a lot easier for people to get in and out. And what we've noticed is the younger kids have the most problem to try to get in and out. So we want to make it easier. If we're going to try to promote it, we want to make it easier for people to utilize that area. So on any given weekend, if it's nice, like this coming weekend, I would guess if you go by there, you'll see a lot of canoers and kayakers and stand-up paddleboarders. That's what we're seeing. So the area is getting a tremendous amount of use, so we want to continue to develop that area. Next, please. As many of you know, the new section of trail that goes through Cordova Park opened last fall. And the blue section there was the area a couple, 3, 4, or 5 years ago that was opened, and that was paid for by the company that was doing the hydroelectric plant at Redrock. Now the retaining wall that's listed there, that was actually done through Des Moines River Greenbelt funds back probably 15 years ago. The Des Moines River Greenbelt is, in a nutshell, is a federal program that delivers federal money occasionally. It's like a congressional add-on, if I can use that word. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't get it, but a lot of times you have to lobby for it. So back, like I say, around 15 years ago, there was money available. So the thought was to use those funds to develop high-ticket items. So that retaining wall ran about $1.1 million. So figuring that the big items, if we could do that with federal funding, down the road, if federal funding was not available, there might be local funds and state funds that could be used to finish the trail. So that was the thought process. The same thing where it says the 285-foot long bridge, that was done in 2004, 2005. That was $630,000. That was again paid for by funds from the Des Moines River Greenbelt. So the red section is the one that was developed over the last, we started this about 20 years ago, the development of this, and we just now got it done last fall. So if you keep working at it, sometimes you can get some nice stuff done. So it's approximately 2.75 miles of hard surface trail, and about in the middle there, we've got our 3-bedroom cabins. And what we have found is that people really like having a trail right next to the cabins. So that has increased people in the off-season, where they like to come now just to walk the trail, even in the wintertime. So that's been a plus for us. On the left-hand side of the top of the screen there, that is the new trailhead. And our long-term plans are to put a restroom there, along with probably a shelter house. Right now, we have a lot of bikes that just come right into the park and use our facilities there. So there are facilities there, but we'd like to make them a little more convenient for people. So that's been a very good trail. Hit the next slide if you would. It's very scenic. When you go through it, it winds through the hardwood timbers there on the north side of the lake. So it's very scenic, and it gets a tremendous amount of use. So next. The project we're working on now is we are going to build a new office classroom complex at Cordova. And if you're familiar with the old park ranger residence, which is no longer there, that is where this will be situated. So if you come into the main entrance at Cordova and come down to the road going to the observation tower, it's right at that Y where it splits. One road goes to the cabins, one goes to the observation tower. That's where this new facility will be located. Go to the next one, please. This is a shot. I know it's kind of hard to see that, but the main entrance as you walk in, that's an observation area. Kind of, if you want to come and read a book, that the north side of that wall will be glass, and we'll put feeders out there so people can come and just kind of hang out if they want to. There'll be kind of a TV area there with a fireplace. So we're trying to get people out to the lake, out to the park, and just kind of enjoy nature, even in the wintertime, and look through a glass wall, excuse me, and see different things. So there'll also be offices for the park rangers, clerical staff, and our naturalist, Marlon Mertz. And then if you come down to the bottom part of that screen, there's a classroom there. And what that will do is give us an opportunity to enhance our environmental education services. Instead of us always having to go out to them, we can bring people out to the park and stage events from there. We've got a number of nice trails to walk on. We've got the observation tower. We've got ponds out there for pond study. So we want to increase the number of programs per year that we put on and put guest speakers in there and just have all different kinds of fun activities there to activate that park a little more. So go to the next one, please. The other thing we've been doing over the years is any piece of equipment that is a playground that has wood on it, we've been upgrading to metal multi-station facilities. And they've worked very well. You might not think so, but playgrounds are in incredibly high demand at a park setting. So these get a tremendous amount of use. The gravity rail there on the right-hand side, when we got it, was one of only about a half a dozen in the state of Iowa. So it gets so much use that we have to keep placing the wheels on the slides, which is a good thing. So next slide, please. And then for the parents and the grandparents that sit in the sun and watch, we erected some sunshades, which are incredibly helpful on a hot day. So next slide, please. Last year was hard on everybody with COVID, and a lot of people were trying to find things to do outside that were safe, and that was difficult to do. So the Conservation Department partnered with Thrive of Knoxville and the Marion County Historical Society to do a Christmas light tour at Marion County Park on the west edge of Knoxville here. This is something the Conservation Department has been toying with for probably 25 years, but was never able to get enough participation to make that happen, because it's a lot of work to get something like that done. So this year we had a lot of volunteers, a lot of people stepped up, and it worked really well. If you want to hit the next slide. This is the main entrance to Marion County Park. That's the historical village in the background that's lit up. The lighted area to the left side is a photo op station that had like a fireplace and stockings hanging there, so you can do your own photo op there. Next slide. This is we use the main campground in the park, and this is just a shot of going around the roads to see some of those displays. Next shot. So we called it Marion County Christmas. We had roughly 35 lighted displays, along with trees that were wrapped and different lights, throughout the park. It ran approximately 18 days from November 20th to the 23rd of December, from 6 to 9, and we'll get right at 3,555 vehicles that went through, and collected over $29,000 in goodwill donations and sponsorships. For the first time out of the gate, we were very impressed with those numbers. So planning for this coming November and December started in March. The committees come together, and we think that it'll be bigger and better this year with more displays. So we're looking forward to that. So I would encourage any and all to come out to that this winter. So that's what I've got.
Thank you, Steve. To keep our agenda moving, certainly We have several speakers. I'm sure most of them will be around after the meeting if you want to ask questions, but we'll try to keep this the meeting rolling. Next, we have with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers at Lake Redrock, we have Jennifer Cruz. Jennifer?
I wanted to start with this photo here. It's kind of the new look of the Redrock Dam. So again, my name is Jennifer Cruz. I am a natural resource specialist with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I work at Lake Redrock and Saylorville Lake, but I've worked at Redrock since 1993. So been through a couple of big floods and seen a lot of different things over the years. Go to the next slide. So because we are the Corps of Engineers, we work for the Army, we have missions. People sometimes get confused about our speak, and I am trying to translate. Flood risk management and low flow augmentation are kind of all in one. That's how we're dealing with the water. Recreation obviously speaks for itself, and then environmental stewardship. These are authorized purposes that Congress has provided to us, so these are the things we can do on government property. You may be familiar with this map, maybe not. Trying to show the scope of our project. Again, that's another government or Army speak. It's a project because it's always changing. We go basically below the dam, Howell Station area. The old Hornsberry Bridge is kind of the boundary there. And actually, this map does not show, we do have property in southeast Des Moines, the southwest Pleasant Hill area, where we have levees that we protect some of those major businesses up there. Primarily, we manage the land in the main lake area from the dam, just below the dam, to the Magellan Bridge. The state helps us out with most of that land from Highway 14 all the way up past Reynolds, and also to the south on the White Breast Creek area, just around Knoxville there. And then the county, of course, Steve spoke to those areas, and the state also has a park at Elk Rock. So pretty much everything else we're managing directly. Next slide. And this is kind of a closer view of what we manage around the lake, several recreation areas, and the different amenities. I think one of the really great quality of life attributes that Lake Redrock provides is all the different agencies that are present, and they all have their own niches. We have a ton of campsites and trails, but the county provides some different amenities with cabins and full service sites that we aren't able to provide. And the state has the great equestrian camping as well. So it's one of the unique attributes of our lake, I think. Next slide. So getting right into it, I've divided it up by our missions again, because again, that's how we think and work with the Corps of Engineers. Some of the work that we've recently completed is in FY20, we had a lighting contract. If you drive across the dam, you may have noticed for a long time we only had about 3 of our 4 street lights in the evening that were working. And it was really quite inadequate for our general operations as well. The street lights were supposed to help with traffic, but we've added lights, as you can see in that top right picture, that light up both sides. The catwalk is right below the highway bridge there. We've even there is actually lighting that lights up the Tanner gates, which are our floodgates that you can see below the bridge deck. So those were really nice. In the past, when we have large magnitude flooding, we have to use those big floodgates, and we call upon Musco Lighting to help us with temporary lighting. And this is alleviating having to bring in temporary lighting every time. So it's a really nice addition. It will really help us with future operations. And on the left, bottom left, is a hydropower plant that is completed. It took a little longer than they expected, but I think it's a great attribute to the county. It's fully functional and generating power. We're coordinating with them daily on outflows and, working out a little bit of the kinks, but for the most part, it's been a great partnership between them providing, and this is a little more historical, but a lot of their recreation mitigation during construction. Steve alluded to that earlier with the trail expansion that they did. They did several nice projects around the lake that helped develop our facilities. Next slide. So work that's going on right now and coming up, when I say coming up, it should be any day now. The left is, it was hard to find a very good representative photo. We're redoing the electrical throughout the dam, and this is the boring contract because they were running new conduit from basically the South Tailwater entrance area. That's where we have all of our power to the dam, and that's the boring that's going on out there. So, but they're redoing all the electrical. It's all original from 1965 probably. So you can imagine electrical upgrades would be needed. It's going to be very nice. They're also redoing the lighting inside, and this was all as a result of an arc flash we had during the flood of 19. So one of our managers was out there actually operating one of the tanker gates, and there was an arc flash a gate away. So we put in request for money right away because it was very dangerous, and we got $3 million for this dam electrical upgrade. So important stuff, not too exciting for quality of life, but but important for us to be able to operate the dam and help manage flooding. So on the right, you can see this is an older picture, but we've got a snooper truck there looking at the dam, the bridge below. We own and have to maintain the bridge deck itself directly over the dam. The county owns the road to it, so we're responsible for making sure that this is the way it needs to be. The snooper truck does inspections, and this is during an inspection. You can see a little asphalt patch there. It looks a lot worse than that now, and we did finally get about $800,000 to redo portions of it, which is part of the work that I'm saying is coming up soon, any day now. The county is currently working on the road itself, and so that's why the stoplights are there. I doubt we'll be coordinating at the same time, so I apologize in advance for the traffic issues there. It'll probably, I'm guessing it'll be after, and we won't be I don't think they'll be using a stoplight, so they may have some flaggers, but it should still be one lane open. Next slide. So we have some decent amount of money coming for FY22, which for us starts in October. We received $9 million to replace Tainer gates. That's a really big deal. Again, they're original from 1966. Each one of those gates is 75 tons. There's 5 of them. It will be an undertaking. I'm guessing it will not be completed next year. It probably will take us 3 to 4 or 5 years to get it all done. We do have a bulkhead that we'll utilize, and so we're hoping that we won't have to lower the lake, but a lot of those details have not been worked out yet. So that will be a major undertaking. Again, I think I said that already because it is going to be a major undertaking. The other thing, we got $1.5 million for the middle picture is, if you've never been in the dam, is the operating gallery where we go to make gate changes on the gates that are below the surface of the water, called sluice gates. And we got that money to rehab them. They do require maintenance about every 20 years to be repacked and check the seals and whatnot. So that will be happening again next year. Probably design work on all of these, and then a contract awarded with work to begin in 23, hopefully finalizing in 24. And on the right is a pump station that we have in southeast Des Moines along the levee. We're going to rehab that for about $8 million as well. So there have been issues in previous floods where that was really getting, not performing like we need it to be. So if you're familiar with that area around Vandalia, there's a whole lot of important businesses that we protect there. This is part of the remedial works of the dam. Because when we back up floodwaters, it does go all the way to southeast Des Moines, and this protects them. One of the things that's up there is the Magellan Pipeline, a whole lot of industry there that we're protecting. So it's been estimated $2 billion worth of protection that we're providing there. Or, I'm sorry, $2 billion of industry that we're protecting. Next slide. We also did get some money for shoreline erosion protection. That picture on the left is of Whitebreast Point, which we have a shelter that is utilized there quite frequently, and it's a popular campground. You can see we do have riprap lower, but you can also see the big scarring of the land there above it. So that we're proposing to put riprap along that shoreline and protect that shelter. We can only protect areas around the lake that are government property or government interest. So I know there's a lot of, over the years, it's 50 plus years now, there's a lot of erosion issues around the lake. And you can imagine the quantity of riprap it would take to do it all. So we are pinpointing a couple places. Another spot is around the Tillam Cemetery, where we have some property issues there with erosion. And on the right is a photo of upstream, way upstream up by Runnels, where we have a lot of the sedimentation settles out and is starting to almost look like a riverine area. Now there's two ways to look at that. Some people look at it and think it looks really ugly. We're doing a lot of work with Sustainable Rivers program within the Corps of Engineers to make those mudflats actually do a lot of work for us. We often seed them with millet, which is helpful for waterfowl, and we work with the state. The state's managing that land, but those mudflats are actually quite attractive to shoreline birds. We recently updated our regulation manual, which is the manual that tells us how to let water out, what we do during certain conditions and what levels we have it. And when we analyzed it, we found that we could have more of a band of for a normal pool, which goes up a couple feet from what we used to call normal at 742, and it can go below a couple feet. And so in these mudflat areas, we found that if we come up a couple feet and then go down a couple feet, it really attracts the shorebirds. So we get a lot of rare birds that come to this. So it's kind of an interesting way to manage sedimentation. And there's a whole lot more to talk about on that, but it does bring in a lot of shoreline birds, and it's very interesting. Next slide. And you might wonder, why am I talking about the trail that Steve just talked about? The interesting thing about the Greenbelt program, which he mentioned, is the money comes to us, the Corps of Engineers. And so we actually design the work, and then our engineers do, and then award the contract. And of course, we've worked with the county on that, but the money does go through the Corps of Engineers. And I just wanted to show this as, you know, what we've got finished. And like Steve said, I know that our district office folks that are in charge of that, of the budget submission for that, again, work with the Greenbelt Committee. They put in some other requests, and so hopefully there'll be some more things that happen with that area, but as it is right now, that's the finished product. So still a great 20 years in the making, so we're excited to have it go all the way around the north side. Next slide. Okay, so right now you may know that North Overlook Campground, it has one shower building, and we've closed it to replace it with the shower building you see on the right. This is kind of the new style, at least within the Corps of Engineers, that everybody likes to use. It's a sixplex. Each area has a shower and a restroom and sink, so it's self-contained. Your whole family can go into one, and that's your shower for the time being. So we got about $400,000 for that building, and that's in the process right now. We're hoping to have that area open September 1st in time for Labor Day, and everything will be working by then. So that area is closed right now. Next slide. A couple other improvements that aren't exciting, but I showed some fun pictures here. Our water line replacements. Some of that infrastructure is from the late 70s, early 80s, and so you can imagine we've been just spot treating water line issues throughout Powell Station and North Overlook. Been doing that for quite a while, so it's nice to get some money to upgrade those. We don't have all the details worked out on that yet either. It probably is going to require some closures of some type, but again, still working on those details, but that will be coming next year, hopefully. Next slide. And then environmental stewardship wise, we've been working on this for years, trying to remove invasive species on our project lands. The main players are autumn olive and honeysuckle, and basically they take over a woodland and do not provide a lot of understory health, and also cause a lot of erosion underneath. So it's a constant battle, and one of the main things that we do along our boundary line when we have to do any survey work to make sure that it is accurate, we have to remove these invasive species to even be able to find it. So we're trying to hit that in some of the most important areas, and those are what we call environmentally sensitive areas. They have some attribute to those, to that area that's unique, whether it's a native prairie or has some other cultural, just a variety of important attributes that it could have in an area. So we've been working on it for a while. We got an extra $100,000 for that for next year, and we did get a little extra money for that this year. So it's just constant beating back the invasives. Next slide. And this is just kind of I recently got this data. That's how up to speed the government is. We're about 2 years behind. This is data that is generated from our traffic counters. So, and then it's put into a system and it spits this stuff out. I put that caveat on it because there's some system that it goes into and spits this back out. So take that with a grain of salt. But in general, it's pretty accurate. They do it regionally, so it's not necessarily super specific to Redrock. It is to our region, another oddity. But you can see there, swimmers, sightseers, and campers are our top visitors, and we're getting close to 1 million visits in a year. Some of the economic benefits are pretty nice numbers there as well. 35 million spending money within 30 miles of the lake. So those are nice numbers to see. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
On the numbers, I know you don't compile these.
Nope.
You're relying on somebody else.
Yep.
Are the swimmers, campers, boaters, are these all individuals, or are they
So
duplicative?
So you can see the definition of a visit is a person, and I don't like the way they define that. The way it always has been defined in the past, and that's what I'm going to explain, because I put that on there and I was like, yeah, that doesn't make sense to me.
That's why I'm asking the question.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a car. To me, it's a car that drives over the traffic counter.
Okay.
In an area. And then it's based on, what it used to be based on in the past is surveys. So we would go out and ask people, hey, what'd you do today as they're leaving? and they say, oh, we spent the night, we swam, you know, and you
It
log
is,
all that, and then it would spit it out. Now they're doing it regionally, so those numbers go to a different equation to spit it out, but it's still a regional survey, so same way, it's just, I don't understand that definition that they've got up there as well. I took this right off of, I'm forgetting the name of the site, but I can share that with you. I believe it's a public site, so I can share that information with you.
And, yeah, if you could, and then if there's a way, because when we think about it and explain the benefits of Redrock, I know
Right.
Carla does that, Karen,
Yep.
you do that, I know Knoxville does that, Pleasant, I mean, everybody's talking
Sure.
about the economic benefits of Redrock. We just wanna make sure we got our numbers right.
Right,
So
Yes.
if that's duplicative, if you're counting somebody 3 or 4 times,
I
that,
see what you're saying, sure.
that number could be really very different.
It could be, yep. And what we find, and I hesitated putting this on there, but what we find is oftentimes Carla and Karen and Jill with CBB, they can come up with different numbers. And I trust their numbers better than what our numbers are, frankly, because we have the angle, whatever the angle is, what and I don't mean to say that it's wrong, it's just a different perspective that they're trying to pull, versus, trying to see what the benefits are. I mean, it should be the same, but I've always seen the numbers are different, and I never have been able to explain it very well.
Maybe at some point when we look at the data here, we can correlate it to what we generate and see where and maybe they tell 2 different stories too.
And
But I appreciate your candor.
Yeah, well, yeah,
on
I
the
mean, if it
information,
was,
because then I don't have to say anything about the government, so.
yeah, well, I would call Carla and say, hey, what do you have for this
Yeah.
when it comes to economic
Yeah,
benefits?
The best data, in my opinion, that we get from them is the actual visit numbers, the traffic numbers to and from the park. Those are real numbers, those are real cars. I feel real confident when she says they have X number of people that have went into a park. That's good. The bottom part is where you get into trouble, because what multiplier do you use?
Right.
And so the traffic count numbers, I think, are accurate. That gives us a sense. We tend to use what the state gives us as what a traveling party spends in a day. So that's why it's perhaps different than their multiplier that they're using. And then you can go into recreation and get recreational users and what they spend a day. So there's all kinds of multipliers depending on what you use. So that's where I always go back to, but the visit numbers are the visit numbers, and take those with a grain of salt. You know your family, you know other people's families. You can have a rough idea of what people are spending in a day. For me, I appreciate the visitor count numbers because those are numbers I don't have. I can get a better sense of what people are spending than I can who is attending.
And I guess, the one caveat I'd put on that is, we used to have a very good handle on our locally numbers, and they regionalized it.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's a way to keep people honest, so, because I know that there was some controversy about some lakes inflating their numbers.
Well, I'm sure you get funding based on these numbers.
Oh, yes.
So
Well,
the higher they go, the more money you
I
get.
say that, but, so for example, it only really plays into recreation, although we do try to sneak the numbers in when we talk about the other missions, but for recreation, we have received the same budget at Redrock for several years, probably 5 to 8 years. Occasionally, we'll get a little something extra, like $400,000 for a shower building.
Sure.
And like next year, we get a little water line money. But it's really, the recreation budget within the Corps of Engineers has been really squeezed. We've been made to keep up, and so
So
infrastructure is the new buzzword, right?
Yeah.
So, and it needs to be, there's a lot of it.
Is there any, incentive as us being able to try to, as a board, trying to speak to them? I mean, obviously, we have a large body of water that's not taxable, but we want to incentivize people to come and to enjoy it. But if there's no incentive to promote at a local level, how can we reach out? Do you have numbers do you feel that it would do us any good?
So You know, it's the regular process, talking to congresspeople, yeah. So, you know, that's the only thing that I can recommend. I mean, that's the only way you get more money coming towards recreation at Redrock is by speaking to those people.
Okay.
Those are the people that got the money.
No,
And
not a problem.
unfortunately, that's, you know, that's our process.
If that's our strongest suggestion, I'm.
Otherwise, internally, there's not a lot that, I mean, it's a struggle internally to change any, it's a complicated process, but, you know, Congress gives us money, but then the Corps also divides it up. So they have their own processes within it, but the Greenbelt exists because of Neil Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's a very unique type of funding. Nobody else has that kind of funding, and it's very specific to Red
It
Rock.
was very politically well
Yes.
done.
Yes.
A unique kind of, I like that.
And the money that we got for the trail here recently just dropped out of the sky. We had no idea it was coming. It just was like, hey, here's $4.5 million.
So it shows me that somebody obviously is getting to somebody, and I think that's, okay. And I appreciate you
Yep.
being, honest.
And we have no ability to talk to those people
Right.
ourselves.
Okay.
So that's the other part of that. So we don't have that.
Just again, as we're talking about the benefits, we talk a lot at a supervisor level. I've talked with Pella, I've talked with Knoxville about this, talked with Joe over in Pleasantville about the amount of land that we have in Marion County that doesn't generate property taxes. Have we ever done a math problem to show if you take the amount of spend that we versus the potential property tax of those acres, what's the difference? I think that'd be an interesting, Jake, that sounds like a math problem for you, bud.
Volunteer him, he's not in the room, right?
I'm listening, Mark.
He heard you.
We'll follow up, because our
We have-
assumption has always been, it's a deficit situation.
Mhm.
Because if you had properties on there with houses, they would be increasing in value. Look at what's happened over the last couple of years.
Right.
But is it? I think that would be an interesting thing to know when we also consider the benefits of the lake.
The other attribute you'd want to probably plug in there somehow, and I don't know that it's the total, but we do have a value on how much flood damage is prevented, right? So
Yeah.
there is that aspect
Sure.
as well. If the dam wasn't here, you would have impacts from
Yep.
flooding.
That's
So
good,
that's
that's
in the
good point.
billions.
Yeah,
I can't
that's a good
remember the
point.
number.
It might be Jake, I'll follow up with you later.
Yeah, that's fine. There is some annual monies that has been a constant number for many years for land that the lake did take that comes in. We can take a look at that if you'd like.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you
That
very
was
much.
great.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Joe Merstick with this Pleasantville and some of the projects going on there. Joe?
Okay, thank you for having me here. So I've got a brief kind of overview of what's going on in Pleasantville. Carla asked me to talk a little bit about our trail system. When I first got there in Pleasantville, we had a trail system basically surrounding Shado Park and the pond that we have, so it's fairly localized. Reason why we have it, to enhance the health and wellness of the citizens. And it provides an alternative route for the kids to go to the park at school. We have a lot of kids walking on the streets and areas that they shouldn't have, and having that trail system in place now, they have an alternate route that they can take to the park and school, so benefits that. And obviously, there's revenue that the local businesses receive, not so much in Pleasantville, but the trail systems that, as you can see, like in Des Moines, where they're doing, the benefit of the trail system really enhances the local businesses. What we've tried to do with the trail system in the last 5 years is create kind of a plan to connect the town. As I said before, we kind of had an area just around the Shado Park area. It was about a mile. And so we've got that trail system in place now. We'll have about 2.5 miles of trails, similar to what Steve tested to and what is along what he's dealing with. So that connectivity is really crucial that we have in Pleasantville, like I said, because it gives that ability for these kiddos or the elderly to connect to from the south side to the north side and connect to the ponds and the parks and areas of importance. Next slide, please. This is an area along Highway 5, kind of on the north end of town. This is our sports complex parking area. We received funding on this from, we had to do a wastewater treatment facility project, so that parking lot was paid for with a state revolving fund project. It was about a $600,000 project, but that gives a good parking facility. If you've ever been to our fireworks show, that's utilized. I think we got about 150 spaces right there. You can see the trail on the left. That borders like on Highway 5, and that kind of goes around the park. Can you go to the next slide, please? The trail itself, we've got days and nighttime usage, so you can see the lights that we put on. That's kind of bordering the pond that we have. So that's used during the winter as well and at nighttime. So those lights shut off around 2 o'clock in the morning. But we have people walking that path all day and all night long. Next slide, please. So the dilemma that we had was how do we create a path outside the area that we already have? So that black line there is a proposed trail which we've got funding for now. It's along Highway 5, and that'll connect to Jasper Street, which we were just recently reconstructed. And so with having Jasper Street, a 31-foot roadway, we have a ride and share lane along with 5-foot sidewalks on each side, so that gives that connectivity that I was talking about. Can you go to the next slide, please? That was funded through a TAP grant that we applied for. So Pleasantville is such a small town, we have to have partners to get anything done around Pleasantville. We have about a $2 million budget annually, so we're very limited on projects. We rely on local option sales tax a lot and partnerships. We've got to have it to grow. So we were awarded Transportation Alternative Program, a grant, I think it was $240,000, and that will be completed next year. It'll start next spring, and that will give that trail on the top side of the Shale Park that connection to Jasper Street. Next slide, please. This is a very basic version, but within Pleasantville, if you've driven along Jasper Street, there's an old schoolhouse that the city actually condemned and we've got possession of. Within that area, there is a green space area between the schoolhouse and Jasper Street, which we got funding for. We put a stormwater retention center basin underneath there, so it's underground and it provides about 60% of our stormwater in that basin. And so it's really green space on top, and we were like, what do we do with this? We can't sell it, we can't build on it. So we decided to create a park. And so we have funding right now to create that park. The lower right portion, that orange triangle is gonna be a rectangle, sorry, is gonna be a basketball court. So we're gonna be paving that here in the next month. So that'll start off kind of the park. The black lines are sidewalks, the connectivity around that'll be ADA compliant. And alongside Jasper Street with the 5-foot sidewalk. And again, Jasper Street's designed as a ride and share lane, so we can have that connectivity that we were speaking about before. Next slide, please. Pleasantville is interesting. Just a little bit about, I was not from Marion County when I got hired here 11 years ago. So the dilemma that we had was our downtown before Highway 5 bypass, thriving, growing, kind of held its own. So the dilemma we have now with Highway 5 bypass is how do we support our downtown, but how do we have growth? And the growth right now is along Highway 5. We see that with new bank, and I'll go to the next slide here in a second with some commercial development and residential development. So our downtown right now, we have limited areas to grow. There's limited traffic, and we rely on basically local businesses. the original Smoky Row was created there. And they partnered with Hy-Vee with 600 stores now. So they're looking at expanding, but they have nowhere downtown to expand to. So it's a dilemma that we are kind of working with them to try to find that extra space and where they're going to put their product without actually closing Smoky Road down. So I can tell you with the limited traffic, with Jasper Street being created, that street was awful. It was terrible. It's been talked about for years to reconstruct, and we did it. It was a heck of a big project for me and for our town. We partnered with the county on getting some funding for this, and we got a substantial amount of grants to get the project done. So we had a limited amount of assessment for our taxpayers. Each resident was only assessed 20% of the paving project. So it was, for instance, on a $150,000 house, they're going to be assessed around that $3,000. So it'd be very minimal over a 10-year period. It won't hurt them. But it does, we have had about 100% more traffic on Jasper Street because of that construction, and that's just on our speed. Our speed sign has a count on it, and so we did a pre-count and a post-count, and our post-count numbers are about 100% higher per month. So that's really good news, and it keeps our downtown flowing. Highway 5, again, we have Casey's, one of the busiest Casey's around. Dollar General, both are exceeding their sales expectations. Kevin Halterman from People's Bank, they're doing great. It's a great location for them. And then Highway 5, we created a buffer zone along the highway. So what that does is any kind of growth, any kind of business that wants to build out there, they can't just put up a pole building. It's got to be aesthetically pleasing. So it's got to have brick or stucco, something like that, because we want to represent Pleasantville the way it should be. It's not just throwing up a building and, hey, look at us. So next slide, please. My last slide, like I said, I told you I'd be brief. So this area here, for people that aren't familiar with Pleasantville, is on the west side of our town. That slide on the left, you'll see the parking lot that we built along with Casey's Dollar General. There's a dental office there. That's a 40-acre parcel now. We're working with a developer locally that we're working on trying to put a gas station truck stop there. We're working with different businesses, and there's 2 other businesses that we think are going to be going in there next year. So we're working on getting funding for that, that infrastructure to put in. We're also going to put a lift station in across the street, which will benefit not only the commercial lots, but the residential lots that we've got behind Casey's now. And that will give us the ability to grow for 30 years just by providing that lift station. For those of you that aren't familiar with, there was 18 houses built last year, new houses built in Pleasantville. We have another 12 already built this year. And if we get the land with it, that's going to continue. That number's going to continue to build. So this future growth picture, if we get the infrastructure and the paving in, we just approved writing a RISE grant application, which will pay for majority of the streets to go in there. If we get this, this will be a game changer for not only our town, but hopefully Marion County will generate a lot of tax revenue off of it. So that's our goals. That's all I have.
No, appreciate that.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. We'll move next on our agenda to Spirit of Pella with Karen Eischen.
All right, good morning. Thank you for having me. And just sitting here in the audience listening, the stuff is incredible that's going on around the county that I didn't know. So I thank everybody for presenting today and appreciating that. One of the things we are looking at in Pella as around the county, all throughout Iowa, is really that attraction of workforce and the retention of workforce. This is something that we are looking very seriously at. What can we do to really attract and retain employees? A lot of what I'm going to talk about this morning centers around placemaking, really connecting people with the places they share. So really giving them spaces to gather, opportunities to connect with each other, and really create that sense of community. So that is really the impetus behind Spirit of Pella. We're calling it Spirit of Pella after our founding father, Henry Peter Schulte. He was an innovator, he was a pioneer, a lover of art, and definitely a risk taker. All characters that we want to continue into the future of Pella. So we have been taking a look at really 3 different aspects of placemaking that you'll see today. One of them is really identifying areas of our community that are beautiful, but they're underutilized. What can we do to better utilize that? That would be attractive to workforce. Also to add art. Art is the international language. Everybody speaks that in some way, shape, or form, and we have ideas on how to add that. And the other aspect we looked at is really how to create an event built around a foundation that's already there in Pella's Christmas to really pattern itself off of Tulip Time. Tulip Time is a great event for our community, for our county, brings people from all over. How can we take that model and base that around Christmas? So I'm going to show you some of the ideas, the visions that we have. And these are just that, they're visions. We know it probably will not look exactly like these photos, but this is our inspiration. So go ahead. You can move one more if you want to. So this is our Glockenspiel, really one of the areas that we're looking at that is beautiful. People use it a couple times a day when the clock has the characters come out and plays music. We really want to make it a place where people can gather. If you go to the next slide. This is what we've envisioned, taking out the benches that serve a good purpose, but doesn't make the space very functional. Adding tables, chairs, umbrellas, some benches, planters, obviously some lights, and of course Wi-Fi. We want people to use this as a remote work area. We want people to gather here, maybe grab lunch or dinner, but also to have performers in there, so you could use it in the evening. You can go forward if you want to. This is just the opposite view. This leads right into our canal. We'll go one more. A night vision. You'll notice on the right side a mural. Again, this is a representation that will all have to be worked out with artists, but really bringing vibrancy to the space as well. So definitely a place that people can gather, work, have events, create a sense of community. You can go ahead. This is the area that connects the Glockenspiel to the Mullengrad itself. You can go ahead. Again, that same concept, just adding seating and lights, making it very welcoming. You'll notice in the background, you'll see the letters Pella. Those are actually 8-foot letters. You'll see a lot of those on Instagram from cities all over countries. It's a great way to help promote your community, have it be a draw down into that area. They may not be placed right there, because we actually have a better place for them after this sketch was made, but something that will not only add art, but postable art on the web. Again, this is in our Mullengrad Canal, right to the east end. We have a great brick plaza out there. Right now it actually has flowers in those containers, so it looks a little better than maybe what it does here, but go ahead. But using that same concept, adding a space, you can go ahead if you want to, there's 3 different versions here. Adding a space where people can gather. Fire feature, you'll see on one end, that will maybe be relocated as well. But really utilizing this as a performance venue. You'll see a stage kind of up near the alleyway there. We have right now periodic, about once a month, live music on Friday evenings. This would make that a real easy way to have music there every Friday night, so people can come hang out, know that it's playing. Again, you'll see a mural in the kind of toward the right-hand side of that screen. We have identified about 15 different buildings around the community that could have murals painted on them, somewhere to bring our heritage to larger than life, so adding that vibrancy to the community. And of course, we have a great Mullengrad that some people drive by, don't even know what's in there. So really identifying that in a very purposeful way, and then creating that district in and all of itself. That could be an entertainment district. We have lots of visions for this long term, but just creating that sense of identity right now. And then I talked a little bit about the buildings. This one is actually in our downtown, right as you come down Main Street from I-80 and Washington. This is a huge building right there with a nice blank wall on it that just screams out for a mural. Could be something like this. We have building owners that are very excited to do this. We were one of those that entered the free mural contest. We didn't win, but I'm very happy that Knoxville did, and I can't wait to see their mural. But we will get that up there. It's kind of one of the aspects of the Spirit Pella. Go ahead. We also have other visions for artwork. We talked a little bit about those Pella letters down in the lower right. In the center, the upper center, that's a pig, but imagine that being a wooden shoe. Many of those.
No pigs.
No pigs. I'm sure they're very representative in some communities, but we could probably better represent ourselves with wooden shoes. But created and painted, decorated from different artists. In the upper right, I think many of us are familiar with the Nashville mural of wings. We could have a version of that that represents our community as well. In the lower left, this is one of our committee members snapped this. I cannot remember what community it was from, but it's another take on a mural. It's actually 3D art. They're butterflies that are metal flying off, and they actually light them and shadow them in the evenings to create a different type of artwork on the side of buildings. You go ahead. And then the third and last element of that is really around the holidays. We have a great start to the holidays in Pella. It is really kind of a Norman Rockwell scene sometimes. We have carriage rides and hot cocoa bars. But what we really want to do is enhance our Christmas lights and activities. We all know people drive to see lights. We heard that from Steve earlier with the Marion County Park. But really that same concept. Right now we have some buildings in our downtown that are outlined in lights. We have a group that is working on completing that with the building owners that don't currently have them. But adding to that, go ahead, we envision something that actually looks like this. Lighting all the trees, definitely the light poles, creating that kind of winter wonderland that people are looking for. Go ahead. We all, go one more if you want to. We also have in our park, we currently do a large Christmas tree on the tulip torn, outline some lights around the window. We have some trees lit, but it could look like, go ahead, it could look like that. If you go one more slide, we also have planned some very large structural elements that are very unique to our area. The lower right is actually a lighted tunnel that will be in our park from the central sundial north to our fountain. The Christmas bulb is what I call it, the upper left. That's actually large enough you could walk through. That could be in the corner of our park. We have a spherical tree up in the upper right. And then, of course, looking into options for a mobile ice rink. What's more winter wonderland than skating in a mobile ice rink? So that could be somewhere in our downtown as well. You go one more. And then finally, this speaks definitely to our heritage. This is a photo from a Kirstmark, an outdoor Christmas market in Leiden. This is actually on their canal. And since we have a canal, we can do the exact same thing, and we'll do the same thing. Our CVB is putting together for this year in December an outdoor Christmas market. So right now constructing the huts, looking at entertainment for adults and for families, but something that is very unique to our area, speaks to our heritage, and can draw a lot of people in as well. So you can go one more. Right now we put together a 501c3 to raise money for these efforts. Not only are we looking to foundations, to corporate support, but we're also looking for support from our local residents. You know, it's something we want them to embrace, something we want them to own. So we are seeking that as well. These projects will happen obviously as funds become available. The City Council is on board with all of the efforts for attraction and retention. I'm sure there will be some assistance there as well. But we definitely don't want just to put that burden on the city. We don't want to just put it on corporations. We want it to be a community effort. So we're in the process. For this year, Smart is underway. We also anticipate some of the lights in the park. We do have some electrical issues that we will have to add next year. And we hope to have everything done and completed, if not by the end of 22, by early 23.
That's excellent.
Awesome, great, thank you.
Karen, thank you.
Sure.
That's exciting.
I think there's one more slide on Karen's presentation.
It's probably not. Oh, I talked about that before.
Yep.
And that's how you can donate.
Karen, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So next, I had talked to Heather, and Heather is on a much needed vacation, so that's a very good thing for her, but she certainly asked me to share her contact information. The city of Knoxville recently did with the Iowa Economic Development Authority a downtown study, and so if folks are interested in learning more about that study, please contact Heather. She said she was more than happy to talk to folks and to share what they've learned in that study, so her email address is up there right now, so if you'd like to have that, or if you want me to send it to you, I would be more than happy to do that.
And Emma, is that something you guys have access to as well at the chamber, or?
We have some of the information, yeah.
Okay, good.
And the next slide. Jill at the Pella CBB also has a group in today, so she provided me a written report. You can see some of the things that they're working on. It sounds great news. It sounds like the downtown conference is going to be in Pella in 2022, so that's an exciting thing that they had announced. And she's working, of course, with the Balloon Fest. And they are going to be at the Iowa State Fair as well, marketing the area, if you want to go on to the next one. They're also working on the tour of homes, which kind of coincides with what Karen's talking about. Some of their holiday brochures, working with hosting some bloggers that they've had before with Mahaska County. And all of us in the area are working on a guide training workshop that'll happen September 28th. So if anybody's interested in that, contact any one of us listed there. We can provide you that information. And then they're also working with Terry Voss to also look at hospitality apprenticeships. Next slide. And they're also doing some work with the Mark, as Karen alluded to. And finally, Jill announced to us that she will be submitting her resignation, so there will be an opening there for a director, so that's something to watch for a new person to join the team there. So that's just something she wanted to provide as well. So if you go to the next slide, I have just a couple updates, and then we can kind of take questions for the remaining portion of the time we have here together. First update is on the Economic Development District. You'll recall we are in the portion of the state that does not have an EDD, and because of the pandemic, we have the opportunity to apply to create one. All the counties have moved forward. We have been working to put together a SEDS document, which is basically a strategic plan that has to go in as part of the application. In working through it originally, we thought we needed to have projects in the SEDS. The EDA has indicated to them that that does not yet need to be in there. So we've got kind of a strategic framework that will be part of the application. Our goal right now is to have the application in by early September. We have 5 people right now, Heather, myself, Dylan with the bank, Don DeWard, Mayor DeWard, and myself, and Joe is the other one that's on this committee that I've worked with the strategic plan. So what this will really provide is an opportunity to match local funds with federal funding and be able to have a staff person, at least one staff person, if not maybe 1.5, to work with cities and governments on accessing federal and state monies from places like EDA and other agencies. So it really provides that grant writer who that's their 100% day job, know those programs, know when they change. So it will be an opportunity. Each municipality will have their own decision capabilities of whether they want to join or not. And the ones that join will then be provided services. So that's kind of in the second step after the application has been sent in and the government has agreed upon designating us as an economic development district, then each of the municipalities will have the opportunity to join. They anticipate with getting our application in September that we could see funding as soon as January or February, which is fairly quickly because they are appropriating some money at that time. So we're hopeful that the application will go in. So if you have questions about that, please let me know. I know they will be contacting each of the municipalities to make presentations to them once again, once they have kind of the membership dollar numbers and those kinds of things as far as what the services would provide. Actually, a week from today, we will have our targeted industry presentation here in this room at 8:30. It is a in-person only event. We will be recording it, so if you can't come, we contact me and we can send you the recording for that particular event. We also are pleased to announce that the Opportunity Squared Economic Gardening Pilot has kicked off. We have selected 3 companies this year in Marion County. It's also happening in Mahaska County. But the Marion County companies include LDJ Manufacturing of the Otley area. They have started their engagement. We also have Heritage Lace from Pella and Peachtree Brewing Company from Knoxville. I sat in on LDJ's first call. It's very exciting to see how they're helping them hone in on the questions that they need answered. This really provides research from a strategic business standpoint for stage 2 growth companies to be able to kind of have the intelligence that larger companies have in-house about competitors, about markets, and so we're really excited to get that program kicked off. The Central Iowa Broadband Study has completed the survey. Thank you to everyone who participated. We now have received maps. There's a lot going on that kind of has made the project kind of funny because of when the state funding came out. The partnership has been having meetings with providers, providing those broadband providers these maps that indicate what we've learned through those surveys as far as what is truly available versus what the other maps were that are not as accurate. So there has been meetings with providers. The full, however, study will not come out until the end of August, and that kind of maps for us the strategy or the pathways to match up the maps with the providers to figure out where those deficits are and who potential providers might be for those areas. So that will come out, I'm guessing the end of August. They're still on track with that, with the overall study to be completed. Next is iWin. We just initiated that with Cirrus at Iowa State University. iWin is focusing on a different approach to identifying our workforce needs. And they're looking at other populations that we could work with employers to help mitigate or encourage those populations back into the workforce, whether that be early retired folks, stay-at-home moms, maybe that is persons with autism, or whatever that might be, of folks of finding new ways and pathways to get at new audiences to enter the workforce. And they're in the stage right now where they're doing an employer survey of some of our larger employers to get a sense of what strategies they're currently using, what's working. Then we will come back with stakeholder meetings to work that through. Cirrus received EDA federal money to do this program, and we were selected because I had been attending a webinar when Ron, the director, was talking about it, offered us as a county, and they accepted us or were interested in us. So it's at no cost to our county to be participating in this program, but could provide us some really help at not only the data, but also a strategy. That's what we hope to come out of there with. And it also allows Cirrus to be able to more easily work with our employers directly in their own individual strategies. So that project is underway now. We just kicked that off. In addition, we are in the process of redoing our economic development information and tourism information on the website. Our economic development information portion should be completed somewhere around the end of this month, first of next month. We're very close in getting that launched. The tourism information will not launch until November because we didn't want to do it midway through the Best of Redrock contest. So we will be launching that after that contest concludes in November. But we should have those all integrated into the county website system before the end of the calendar year. And the last thing that we're just kicking off is the Redrock area guide. I am starting work on that. We will be out getting updates for folks as well as selling advertisements for the publication. Our commission met this morning, and I'm pleased to tell you that we had reduced rates last year, and the commission has voted to keep those reduced rates. So feeling that our businesses are still kind of hurting and wanting people to have that marketing opportunity, They kept them at the rates that we have for 2021. So those are just some of the things that we are working on here. Certainly other things that we're working on with several of our organizations. And the next portion, if you want to go on, is just if there's any of the communities that want to provide an update, I would ask that you'd go to the mic so the people online can hear. But if there's anybody or other organizations here today that have something that they'd like to update the group on, I'd open the mic to you if you'd like to come to the podium and talk to folks. Don't everybody jump up. Anybody online that would like to share any information? You might have to unmute yourself. Don't hear anything else. Is there any questions you might have for our speakers or any items you'd like to discuss? Hearing none. We will move on. Our next meeting will be October 29th at Weiler Corporation. We will be focusing on policy issues, so we will follow a similar format to where we had last year, where we have a couple businesses kind of lead it off, kick it off with talking about some of the policy issues that are they're facing as businesses, and then move it into a more general discussion. So this will be kind of a policy issue from the legislative kind of standpoint, but that'll be the next meeting. And I am moving this meeting to Friday. We've had conflicts with the Knoxville Chamber meetings, and I apologize for that. Our meetings are also on Wednesday, which also takes another Wednesday, which makes it very difficult to find a Wednesday to schedule this meeting on. So we're going to try Friday mornings to see if that's maybe a less intense meeting day to see how that works for this year. So just wanted to let you know of that if you start seeing it on Friday and go, is this the same meeting? Yes, it is the same meeting. I don't hear anything else, supervisors. I'll turn it over to you to adjourn.
Great, I appreciate it. Thank you all for your presentations today, for coming. We just appreciate these meetings, very informative on things that are going on within Marion County, so appreciate that very much. With that, Keisha.
Motion we adjourn.
All right, I will second that. Mr. Grandia.
All right, Johnner,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
thanks, guys.
Back.